Sierra West didn't see the thick black power cable until her foot caught under it and sent her flying face first into the gravel behind the main stage. "Whoa!" A deep voice called out just before a strong arm caught her mid-fall, stopping her inches from the ground. Her hand clutched his forearm, breath caught in her throat. She blinked up dust in her lashes, knees throbbing from the stumble, and found herself staring into steel blue eyes under a mess of dark, windswept hair. "Are you okay?" the man asked, crouched beside her now, his hand still steadying her elbow. I think so," she said, brushing her hair back and trying to get her bearings. She looked down. Her clipboard was cracked, her volunteer badge dangling from its lanyard. "I was just trying to get to the back tent before sound check." "You're bleeding," he said gently, nodding at her scraped knee. "Come on, let's get that cleaned up." She hesitated. "It's fine, really, but he was already standing, offering his hand. Please?" She took it. The moment his fingers wrapped around hers, something odd happened. Not fireworks, not lightning, just a strange warmth that ran straight to her chest and stayed there. He led her around the side of the massive stage, past bustling crew, and into a quiet, air-conditioned trailer. Inside was a sleek black couch, a stocked mini-fridge, and a first aid kit on the leather bench. "Sit," he said. His tone wasn't bossy, just calm, like he was used to people listening to him. "I really don't need," she started. "You tripped over wires working an event that's barely organized," he said, crouching again. "You deserve at least a band-aid." She narrowed her eyes. "You say that like you've got something to do with this chaos." "I do," he said, pressing an alcohol wipe gently to her knee. "I own the company running this concert." Her eyes widened. "You're with Jetstream Events," he smiled at her surprise. "Technically, I am Jetstream Events." Sierra blinked. "Wait, you're the owner, as in Travis Bennett," he nodded once. "Okay." That explained the tailored black shirt, the Rolex, the air of someone who didn't wait in line for anything. She'd read about him in the event brief, a millionaire who started with underground shows in LA and now booked sold-out stadium tours across the world, and he was here, cleaning her knee. "I thought you'd be in a penthouse somewhere, not backstage with the crew," she said. "I like being where things are real," he said simply, pulling out a band-aid and carefully placing it. "You looked like you were in a hurry." "What's your name?" "Sierra West," she said, her voice quieter than she meant it to be. He sat back on his heels and looked at her. "Thank you for not suing me." She laughed before she could stop herself. "I'll send the invoice to your yacht," he grinned. "Deal." She stood, brushing her hands on her denim shorts. "Thanks for the save, I should get back to work." "Wait," he said, that voice stopping her halfway to the door. "There's a VIP dinner after the headliner tonight, you should come." She turned, eyebrows raised. "I'm a volunteer." "I don't think I'm on the list." "I own the list," he said. "You're on it now." She stared at him for a second that felt much longer than it should have. Then something in her chest fluttered. "I'll think about it," she said before slipping out. Sierra tried to talk herself out of it at least 10 times that afternoon. She wasn't the kind of girl who went to fancy dinners with millionaires. She was a production design student volunteering to earn credits, not someone who wore cocktail dresses and drank champagne. But at 8:45 p.m., she found herself outside the rooftop lounge, wearing the one decent dress she owned, heart pounding. She almost turned around until the elevator doors opened, and there he was, Travis. Dressed in a navy jacket, shirt open just enough to look like he didn't try too hard, holding a glass of something expensive. He turned, saw her, and smiled like she was the only person in the world. "You came," he said, walking over to her without hesitation. "I wasn't sure I would." "I was," she raised an eyebrow. "Confident much," he leaned in. "Just hopeful." The rooftop was glowing with string lights, a jazz trio played in the corner, and servers passed around trays of food she couldn't pronounce. Travis didn't let her lift a finger. He pulled out her chair, poured her wine, and introduced her to everyone like she belonged there. At one point, she leaned toward him and whispered, "You do know I tripped over a power cable in front of 40 people this morning, right?" He looked at her like she was the brightest thing in the room. And I've never been so glad for a safety hazard. She laughed, but her blush gave her away. They talked all night. About music, family, how he used to sleep on the floor of his first venue. How she grew up watching her mom paint sets for high school plays and fell in love with the magic of it. By the time he walked her outside, the sky was starting to shift pink. "Do you always stay this long at your own parties?" she asked softly. "Only when I don't want the night to end." She froze as he reached up and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I want to see you again, Sierra." Her stomach flipped and she nodded before she could stop herself. "Okay," he smiled. "Tomorrow, I'm working. Then I'll find you," and he did. The next day and the day after that, he brought her water bottles when she was sweating in the sun. He watched her sketch lighting cues during rehearsals. He sent someone to fix the broken tent zipper she kept struggling with, and every time she looked up, he was already watching her. It was insane, really. She didn't understand it, but she felt it. Something real, something dangerous, something that felt a lot like the start of falling in love. By Thursday, Sierra had memorized the labyrinth of trailers, tents, and scaffolding that surrounded the open-air stadium. She'd stopped charting Travis Bennett's movements, but somehow he always seemed to appear at the exact moment she was about to drop something, forget something, or lose her mind entirely. "You really don't sleep, do you?" she asked as she stepped down from the lighting rig scaffolding, clipboard tucked under one arm, sweat clinging to her temples. Travis leaned against a steel post, sunglasses perched on his head, a bottle of cold hibiscus water in his hand. "I do," he said, handing her the drink. "Just not when there's a chance of seeing you rewire a dimmer board while arguing with a lighting director twice your size." She took the bottle, unscrewed the cap, and gave a dry laugh. "Didn't know you were watching." "I wasn't," he said. "Until you made him apologize." "I didn't make him, your glare did." Sierra rolled her eyes but sipped the water gratefully. She was covered in specks of paint and dust, a faint bruise forming on her collarbone from where a fixture had swung too hard. She didn't exactly feel like someone worth noticing, but Travis was looking at her like she was the only person on this side of the city. "I need to finish the light plot revisions before tonight," she said, glancing at the stage. "We're changing the closing act's entrance. They want dry ice now. Because apparently dramatic fog is more important than safety." He pulled a folded sheet from his back pocket and held it up. "Already cleared with the fire marshal," she blinked. "You're kidding." "I like getting ahead of things," he said, "especially when they matter to you." That stopped her. Not because of what he said, but because of how easily he said it. Like it wasn't strange to prioritize someone you barely knew. "Why?" she asked before she could stop herself. He looked at her for a long second, then nodded toward the edge of the stage. "Walk with me." They stepped down into the seating rows, the sun casting long shadows across the rows of empty chairs. Travis kept his hands in his pockets, his pace easy, but something shifted between them, less banter, more space for whatever this actually was. "My dad used to take me to these kinds of venues when I was a kid," he said, "but we never sat up front, always the nosebleeds. We'd sneak snacks in and pretend we were critics." Sierra listened, surprised by the image. It didn't match the man who had a driver waiting outside the venue in a black SUV with tinted windows. "Then when I was 17, he got laid off. We lost the apartment. I started booking local bands in warehouses to make cash. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid for my mom's meds." She didn't speak. He wasn't looking for pity, that much was clear. He said it like he was carving something open that had stayed closed for too long. "I built Jetstream because I wanted to control the chaos, to make sure no one else had to depend on chance." "And now," Sierra asked softly, he turned to her. "Now I want to build something that doesn't disappear when the lights shut off." Her heart kicked in her chest, too fast, too deep. She stopped at the edge of the stage stairs. "You said you wanted to see me again." "I did. And now, I want to know what makes you stay up at night." She stared at him, pulse thudding. "I sketch designs I can't afford to build," she said quietly. "I imagine installations that would never get approved." And I worry that I'll always be the assistant, not the artist. Travis didn't reach for her. He didn't interrupt. He just stood there, letting the confession hang between them like a bridge. I've seen the way you work, he said finally. You think 5 steps ahead, but you act like you don't belong in the spotlight. Because I don't, you do, he said simply. You just haven't stood in it yet. She looked away, overwhelmed by the sharp, sudden ache in her chest. He didn't know her, at least, not enough to say things like that. But the way he said it made her want to believe it anyway. A voice crackled over the radio at her hip, breaking the moment. Stage power test in 2 minutes, came the announcement. She clicked the transmitter. Copy that. When she turned back, Travis was already walking up the aisle, but he paused just before the entry tunnel. You free tomorrow night? He asked, not turning around. I don't know yet. I'll wait, he said, and then vanished into the shadows. That night, during the final rehearsal, Sierra found a black envelope tucked inside her equipment bag. No note, just a ticket, row A, seat 1. A single pass to the luxury suite above the stage. She stared at it, heart pounding, and told herself not to read into it. But she didn't throw it away. The next evening, the stadium buzzed with over 20,000 people. Lights exploded across the sky, and the bass from the opening act thrummed through the concrete. Sierra didn't see Travis all day. She kept her head down, rewired a faulty input on the south panel, and ignored the fluttering anticipation that wouldn't leave her alone. She told herself she wouldn't go, until she did. The suite was quiet, lined with velvet seating and stocked with champagne and imported fruit. But it wasn't the opulence that made her breath catch, it was the screen on the far wall. Her design, the rotating LED arch she'd drawn on scratch paper during a lunch break, was live. Built, lit, installed. She turned as the door opened behind her. Travis stepped inside, dressed in black, eyes steady. You said it wouldn't pass inspection, she whispered. I called in 3 engineers, he said. They made it safe, you made it beautiful. She didn't know what to say. The room faded. The music below blurred, all she could see was him. Why are you doing this? She asked. Because I'm not waiting for something real to fall into my lap again. Her breath caught. He stepped closer, close enough for her to feel the heat of him. I can't stop thinking about you, Sierra, and I don't want to. The air between them was electric. But before she could answer, a sudden knock on the suite door shattered the silence. Travis opened it. A man in a headset whispered something in his ear, his expression urgent. Travis's jaw tightened. What is it? Sierra asked. He turned to her, voice low. The fire marshal's back. Someone filed a complaint about the rig. They're threatening to shut down the whole show. Her stomach dropped. Did someone report me? She asked. He didn't answer. But the look in his eyes told her everything. Someone wanted her gone, and Travis was about to find out who. The moment the fire marshal's name was mentioned, Sierra's stomach turned to ice. Travis glanced at her, jaw tight with frustration, then spoke to the technician. Keep him occupied, I'll be down in 5. The door closed, leaving them alone in the suite. The muffled roar of the crowd below pulsed through the floor. I don't understand, Sierra said. Why would someone file a complaint? The rig passed inspection. You had engineers check everything. His eyes stayed locked on hers. That's not the point. Someone wanted this to happen. They used your design to trigger it. Her throat tightened. You think someone's targeting me? I think someone's targeting us. Sierra folded her arms, suddenly cold despite the warm night air seeping through the glass. Why? Travis stepped closer, lowering his voice. Because you showed up in my world and didn't play by its rules. You didn't try to impress anyone. You didn't care who I was, and you still managed to matter. She didn't know whether to kiss him or run. Instead, she asked, Do you know who it is? I have a guess, he said. And if I'm right, it's someone who's been circling for a while waiting to make a move. Then let me help, she said, her voice steady. He stared at her like he wasn't expecting that. I'm not just going to disappear because I'm inconvenient, she said. If someone's trying to use me to get to you, then we figure it out, together. The look he gave her in that moment was unlike any he'd given before, not playful, not admiring. It was raw, unfiltered. I should go deal with this, he said after a beat. "But I'm not leaving you alone up here." She lifted her chin. "I'm fine, I'm not," he said. "Not if you're a target." Before she could argue, he pulled out his phone and spoke into it quietly. A moment later, a tall woman in a black suit stepped through the door. "This is Dana," he said. "She'll stay with you until I get back." Sierra watched him leave, tension radiating off him like heat. The door closed behind him, and for several long minutes all she could hear was the pulse of the concert below. Dana stood silently by the entrance, not saying a word. Sierra paced, her mind running wild with questions. Someone had reported her design. Someone who wanted to undermine Travis, and somehow she'd become the weapon. She turned to Dana. "How long have you worked with him?" 8 years, Dana said, her tone clipped but not unfriendly. "Has anything like this ever happened before?" "Not like this." Sierra nodded slowly. "So whoever it is, they're close." Dana didn't answer. She didn't need to. When Travis returned half an hour later, his expression was unreadable. "They're not shutting us down," he said. "But they're requiring a full secondary inspection before the final act. That gives us less than 30 minutes. Sierra's heart sank. "That's not enough time to reroute the entrance queues." "I know." He ran a hand through his hair. "I need you to be with me on this. No matter what happens." "I already told you," she said. "I'm not going anywhere." He nodded once. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and muttered something under his breath before looking back at her. "Change of plans. We need to talk to someone." Now, he didn't tell her where they were going, and she didn't ask. They took the elevator to the operations floor, a concrete corridor lined with cables and crew shout-outs echoing from every corner. Travis led her through a side door and into a darkened production office. Inside sat a man in his late 40s, wearing a Jetstream badge and a sour expression. "Darren," Travis said, shutting the door behind him. "Funny seeing you here." "I work here," the man replied. "Or did you forget that when you started handing out jobs to interns and volunteers?" Sierra stiffened. "You filed the complaint," Travis said flatly. Darren didn't deny it. "You've been waiting for a reason to take a swing at me," Travis continued. "But dragging Sierra into this, that's low even for you. She's untested. She doesn't belong on a rig that size." "She didn't build it," Travis snapped. "She designed it. I approved it." "You're angry because you've been coasting for years and someone with talent showed up and made you look lazy." Darren stood, his face turning red. "I built this company with you." Travis's voice dropped. "You built nothing. You showed up late to meetings and took credit for work that wasn't yours. And when someone better came along, you tried to burn her out." Sierra couldn't move. She felt like she was watching a fuse burn toward an explosion. "I should have fired you 6 months ago," Travis said, "but I was sentimental. That was my mistake." "You can't prove anything," Darren said, but there was a tremor in his voice. "I don't have to," Travis said. "You filed a formal complaint with the city, you left a paper trail, and you did it under your company email." Darren's face fell. Travis opened the door. "Security will escort you out." 2 crew members were already waiting. Darren hesitated, then walked out without another word. Sierra stood frozen until the door clicked shut. "You didn't have to protect me like that," she said quietly. Travis turned to her. "I didn't do it to protect you. I did it because you earned your place here, and no one gets to take that away from you." For the first time, she didn't feel like a guest in his world. She felt like she belonged. The final set was minutes away. They returned to the control platform overlooking the stage, where the crowd had swelled into a sea of movement. Travis stood beside her, arms crossed, gaze fixed on the glowing arch she'd designed. "I want you to launch the entrance cue," he said, her eyes widened. "What? You drew it. You brought it to life. You pushed the button." She hesitated, then stepped forward. Her hand hovered over the console, heart pounding. "Now," Travis said. She pressed the button. The stage erupted in light and movement. The crowd screamed. And Sierra West watched her creation come alive beneath the night sky. Travis leaned in, his lips close to her ear. "You just stole the show." She turned to him, her pulse still racing. "Then what happens now?" He looked at her, voice quiet. "Now I fall harder than I meant to." The roar of the final act still echoed across the stadium when Sierra stepped off the platform, adrenaline buzzing through her limbs. The applause, the lights, the sheer magnitude of it hadn't hit her until now. She had done it. Her design had dazzled 25,000 people. But none of it compared to the moment Travis caught her hand in his as she reached the bottom of the steps. "You were brilliant," he said, his voice low and warm as the crowd behind them swelled again for the encore. Sierra couldn't speak. Not yet. Her heart was still racing too fast, her breath too shallow, not from nerves but from the way he was looking at her. Like she wasn't just part of the show, like she was the whole damn performance. "I need to show you something," he added, tugging her gently toward the edge of the service corridor behind the stage. She let him lead her. Past technicians packing up gear, past the smell of sweat and electricity, until they slipped into a secured elevator tucked between two concrete halls. She glanced at him, confused, but he only reached for the keycard around his neck and swiped it across the panel. The elevator began to rise. "Where are we going?" she asked. "You'll see." When the doors opened, Sierra's breath caught. They stepped into a glass-walled room suspended above the city, an observatory-style lounge she hadn't known existed. From there, skyscrapers shimmered like scattered diamonds, and the stadium below glowed like a living thing. But it wasn't the view that stopped her. It was the table set in the center of the room, linen, candles, 2 plates of risotto already steaming, a bottle of wine chilling in a silver bucket. A low arrangement of wildflowers she'd once mentioned loving in passing was placed at the center. She turned to him, stunned. "You planned this." Travis slipped off his jacket and draped it over the back of one chair. "I wanted to celebrate with you, not the show. You." Sierra stepped forward slowly, fingertips brushing the edge of the tablecloth. "You remembered the flowers. I remember everything you say." She sat down, not because she was tired, but because her knees didn't trust her anymore. "Travis," she said, voice quieter now. This isn't just about tonight, is it?" "No," he said, finally sitting across from her. "It started with a fall, but it's become something I can't stop thinking about. Every hour we're not together, I want to know where you are, what you're working on, whether you're thinking about me." She looked down at her hands. "I don't usually let people in this fast." "I don't either." He leaned forward. "But I'm not interested in pacing this out like it's some calculated risk. I'm already in, Sierra." Her throat tightened. "I don't have a yacht," she said suddenly, trying to break the intensity, "or a trust fund. I have 3 roommates, a leaky ceiling, and 100 unfinished sketches under my bed. I've seen what you're capable of with nothing but wire and willpower. Imagine what you could do if someone gave you the resources you deserve. No strings." She narrowed her eyes. "You mean you?" "I mean me investing in you," he said simply. "Not because I want to own your work, I just want to see you create without limits." Her chest ached with something too big to name. Fear, maybe, or the terrifying possibility that this man wasn't just temporary. "I don't want to be a project," she said. He reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. "You're not. You're the first person who's made me want more than success." They didn't speak for a long moment. The city spun quietly below them. The candles flickered in their own rhythm. Then Sierra stood. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Anything." She stepped around the table and looked at him without flinching. "If I weren't part of this show, if we'd met somewhere else, somewhere that had nothing to do with your world, would you still have noticed me?" He didn't hesitate. "I would have noticed you in a blackout." She exhaled slowly and then finally let herself smile. "You really don't take no for an answer, do you? Not when it comes to you." She leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't rushed or hesitant or cautious. It was the kind of kiss that says, "I know what this is now," the kind that seals a beginning neither of them had expected. When they pulled apart, Travis rested his forehead against hers. "I want to take you somewhere." She tilted her head. Now he grinned. "You trust me?" "I just kissed you in a glass tower, didn't I?" They left the stadium behind, slipping into the back of a sleek black car waiting curbside. No words passed between them on the drive. The silence wasn't awkward, it was charged, like the air before a storm. Sierra didn't realize where they were going until the car pulled into a gated drive, a property nestled high above the city, surrounded by tall hedges and quiet. The house was modern and warm, all soft lights and open spaces that looked lived in, not staged. He didn't show it off. He didn't need to. He led her into a room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a long table covered in design materials, fabric swatches, lighting blueprints, and a corkboard filled with pinned ideas. "This is my creative space," he said. "The one no one sees." She walked slowly around the room, fingertips grazing the materials. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to add to it." She turned. "I want this to be ours, Sierra. I want to build something real with you, not just in business." In life. For a long second she didn't answer. Her heart thundered, her mind raced, then she nodded. Okay, I'm in." And just like that, something shifted. She didn't trip this time. She walked forward, steady and sure, into something that felt a lot like forever. He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. And when he pulled back, he whispered, "You have no idea how long I've been waiting for you." And she whispered back, "Then it's a good thing I fell right into your arms." Sierra woke to the sound of distant birdsong and warm light filtering through gauzy linen curtains. For a moment she didn't move. The air smelled faintly of cedar and lavender, and the sheets beneath her were impossibly soft, like woven silk. Her sketchpad rested on the nightstand beside a glass of water, right where she'd left it the night before. She turned her head, and there he was. Travis lay beside her, one arm draped lightly across her waist, his breathing even, his lashes casting faint shadows across his cheekbones. In the quiet morning light, with the weight of the stadium, the fire marshal, and the world lifted, he looked younger. Softer. As though sleep had peeled back the layers of power and command, and left only the man who'd been watching her from the base of the stage with his heart wide open. She reached for his hand. His eyes opened, slow and steady, and the corners of his mouth curved up just slightly. Hi, she whispered. They lay there for a while, neither of them saying much. There was no rush anymore. No deadlines, no spotlights, just the sound of the wind brushing the trees outside and the thrum of something unshakable between them. Eventually, he spoke. "I canceled my morning meetings." She turned her face toward him. "You did?" "I told my assistant I had something more important to do." She raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" He rolled onto his side, propping his head on his hand. "Like making breakfast for the woman who just changed everything." She laughed, pushing the sheets aside. "That's an ambitious claim. I'm serious." He sat up behind her. "You didn't just walk into my world, Sierra, you rewired it. Lit it from the inside." She stood, pulling on one of his button-down shirts that swallowed her frame, and crossed to the window. The city stretched out below them, golden and still. She pressed her hand to the glass. "I used to think I had to earn everything twice over," she said. "Like the only way to prove I belonged was to bleed for it." "You don't have to prove anything anymore," he said behind her. "Not to anyone, especially not to me." She turned. "I want more than just a moment with you, Travis." He stepped toward her, barefoot and unguarded. "Then take all of them." Later in the kitchen, he cooked, not well. The eggs were slightly burned, the toast uneven, and he managed to break 2 yolks trying to flip them. But the way he looked at her when she leaned against the counter, sipping coffee in nothing but his shirt, made it the best breakfast she'd ever had. "I was thinking," he said, sliding a plate toward her, "about your portfolio, the full one, the designs you haven't shown anyone." She paused. "What about it?" "I want to fund your first installation. Full creative control, your name on the marquee, you pick the city." She stared at him. "You're serious." "I'm always serious about brilliance." She set her fork down. "Why me?" He stepped around the counter and pulled her into him. "Because when you walk into a room, it changes. Because I've spent years building things that made money, and now I want to build something that means something. With you," tears threatened, but she blinked them away. "And if I say yes," he kissed her forehead. "Then we start today." She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "Paris," he smiled. "Paris it is." That afternoon, they drove to the old warehouse district near the river where Travis had a private gallery space under renovation. The building was all raw beams and skylights, perfect for what she had in mind. He handed her the keys. The next few weeks passed in a blur of motion and color. Sierra sketched late into the night, her hands smudged with graphite and paint. Travis brought her food, arranged meetings with fabricators, and insisted she take breaks when she forgot to eat. They argued once over lighting placement. She won. He loved that. The installation opened on a warm Saturday evening, with invitations sent to curators, critics, and a few friends she hadn't seen since college. The piece, a kinetic sculpture of wire and suspended light, moved in response to the heartbeat of the room. People stood in silence, watching their own rhythms reflected in motion and glow. At the center of it stood Sierra, hair pinned back, wearing a deep emerald gown that had arrived at her door 3 days before with no note. Travis stood beside her in a black suit, not a trace of his usual armor in sight. The applause at the end wasn't deafening. It was quiet, reverent, like everyone had just witnessed something they didn't quite have words for. Later, when the last guest had trickled out and the lights dimmed, Travis took her hand and led her to the center of the room. "I want this," he said. "Not just for tonight, I want all of it. You, me. The late nights, the fights, the paint in your hair. I want to wake up 10 years from now and still be the man who gets to see you create." Sierra pressed her hand to his chest. "You really don't do anything halfway, do you?" "I don't know how," he said. She kissed him, long and slow, and when she pulled back, her voice trembled. "Then let's build it, all of it." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I was going to wait," he said, "but you never really give me time to plan anything." Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, and exactly her, a thin platinum band with a single raw-cut sapphire. Her breath caught. "I love you," he said, "and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it." She didn't speak. She couldn't. She just nodded and threw her arms around him, her yes whispered against his neck. They didn't wait long. 3 months later, they married in a greenhouse in Provence, surrounded by wildflowers and the people who mattered most. She wore a dress she designed herself, soft silk that moved like water. He wore no tie, just an open collar and a look that said he'd never take her for granted. They danced under string lights and stars, barefoot and breathless. He whispered promises against her skin. She whispered forever back. And when the music faded and the candles burned low, they stood at the edge of the garden, hand in hand, watching the horizon shift from lavender to gold. Sierra turned to him, her voice quiet. "Still think I changed everything?" He kissed her temple. "No," he said. "Now I know you did."